this is our last Connect and Learn session. So this is number 26. We started on March 25th. We've done 2 a week up until June 23rd. So we're going to take a break. July, I think the MASN staff in July will keep working, but we're going to take a minute to breathe and figure out how we're going to do things in the fall and how we can best support you as you school starts back up, as you get back in front of your kids, and what we can do to help support after-school programs around the state. So thanks for being with us on this one. Today is the last of our sessions on the Healthier Generation, Connect and Learn. So this is number 3 of this. Steph, if you want to share that screen, and we'll kind of go that way. We're just going to do a quick little review of what we've done. If you want to jump to the next one, Stephanie. Thanks. So, so the last 2 weeks we've done the Healthier Generation Connect and Learn sessions. The first week was really just an overview of the HEPA standards. The link is right there on the slide. And maybe Stephanie, if you could slide that over to the chat box, at least put the link in the chat box as we talk about it. So the HEPA standards were developed by the National After-School Association, implemented in 2011. And really, the HEPA stands for Healthy Eating and Physical Activity, in case you haven't been with us for the last couple of weeks. And these standards are really their recommendations. They're not requirements. We're not saying you have to do this. You must implement all of these things. But these standards are just some ways that we can plant some seeds in kids to think about living a healthy lifestyle from the time they're in elementary school on up until they're older adults. But just that healthy eating, making nutritious choices, those kind of things, and the physical activity, just moving a little bit every day, whether that's a full-on CrossFit workout or if it's just going for a walk for 10 minutes, whatever it might be, but at some point during the day, incorporating some physical activity. And then incorporating the healthy eating and physical activity into your after-school programs. So giving kids a chance to move every day in your programs. Giving them healthy choices for their snacks. So that was the first week, was just kind of the overview of the standards. Again, recommendations, not requirements. Last week we talked about family and community engagement. And we understand that when we work with kids, that we don't just work with the child, right? We're working on or working with the entire family in that setting. So so we talked about that family engagement and that community engagement. The community engagement was, who can we partner with to bring in to help our kids understand healthy eating and physical activity, as well as what can we do in our community. Stephanie talked a little bit about even just picking up trash. You take your kids out and they pick up trash around the building or maybe just around the block where the school is. So they're walking, there's physical activity involved, but they're also providing a service to the community. So family and community engagement was last week. Denise typed in the chat box about being intentional was helpful. And really that's what we're talking about, is just being intentional about the healthy eating, the healthy choices, and the physical activity in your programs. And then we talked last week also a little bit, Laura Beckman, who I don't know if Laura's on here today. I got an out of office reply from her. I don't see her anywhere. So maybe hopefully she'll pop in. Laura is our connection at DESE. She is in the physical education at DESE. And so she's one that Stephanie and I have talked to. I went to Atlanta with her for a training on the HEPA standards. She's been a great resource for us as far as trying to put these webinars together. But she sent a link last week about getting back into school time. And that link is on that slide. Shape America is where it came from. So that's kind of what we've talked about the last 2 weeks, the overview of the standards and then the family and community engagement. Today, we're going to talk more about kind of barriers. What might you encounter? What do you encounter when you start talking about healthy eating and physical activity? So Stephanie, if you want to flip to that next slide. So we're going to give you a chance to talk to each other. So we're going to talk about barriers. What are those things? So if you've been with us the last 2 weeks and we've talked about the healthy eating, what are the things in your head that you go, oh, we can't do that because of whatever? Physical activity. Yeah, that sounds really great, but it's going to be hard for us because whatever. So, so we have 64 people here. I'm going to create some breakout rooms with 5 or 6 people in each room. And in that breakout room, I just want you to talk about what are some barriers? What are the things that would prevent you from implementing healthy eating choices in your program? What are some things that would prohibit you from putting in some physical activity? What are the excuses, right? And not saying that it's all excuses, because some of it's real. Some of it are very real. But what are those things that immediately in your head you go, oh, I can't do that because? All right, so you're going to have a conversation in your rooms. We're going to hear from a couple of different breakout rooms. So what you talked about was kind of what are some barriers? What are some things that limit you in healthy eating and physical activity in your programs, whatever that might be. So you can type those in the chat box if you would like. I would like to hear from room 5, room 11, and room 15. And it doesn't matter what order. So if you were in room 5, room 11, or room 15, if you want to unmute yourself and just tell us, what did you talk about in your room? What was the conversation? What were some barriers to implementing healthy eating and physical activity?
Hey, Brad, it's Casey Reed from Adventure Club and Warrensburg Adventure Club.
Right,
I think it was 5. Richard, actually, it was funny because it was Richard, Liz, and I, and two other folks, and we're all at the same site, so it was pretty funny. But it was kind of good because we got to talk to each other about it. I actually do the ordering of all of our snack and food and stuff like that for every day. And one of my hurdles is since we're through the district, we order through the district, and I only get to order what is offered. Like, I don't get to make my own, go out and like make a big list of things I'd like. Is they say, here's a list of 30 things that you can order, and 25 of those things are prepackaged, sugary, high-carb foods. And then the other 5 are some vegetables or kind of prepackaged, like pear cups that are just full of high-fructose corn syrup, stuff like that. So that's one hurdle. The other thing is we have multiple sites with lots of different numbers at each site, and it kind of fluctuates from month to month of, we have one school that's generally bigger than the rest, but the other one, so it's hard to order all, fresh fruits and vegetables when they're not as using those and utilizing those aren't as flexible as prepackaged stuff that lasts a long time. So there ends up being a lot of waste because we can't get to things, or, we have low numbers for whatever reason at one school, and we have to try to move them around to use them. The logistics kind of get messed up there. Richard actually knows a lot about it because he ran our food, our whole food thing for a couple of years. So do you have anything else, Richard, that we talked about?
No, that was just the biggest ones, is the fact that we have kids that are extremely picky eaters because they haven't been exposed to healthier foods. So a lot of waste is developed, which means a loss of money, which means why do we want to invest in that anymore? And then, of course, ordering from the school district when they have those 20 things that are just not as good as we want, and the few that are.
Yeah, great. Thank you, room 5. Anybody from room 11 or 15? What are some barriers what are some things that limit you with your healthy eating and physical activity in your program? Anybody from room 11? Room 15? Let me see, because I can see who was in the rooms. You know what, hey, Denise, if you would, just because I saw you in the chat box and actually you were in one of those rooms. So do you want to tell us, Denise, what you talked about in your program or in your room? Denise Berry? There you go.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so there were actually only 3 people in our room. Mr. Eric Moody, myself, and Miss Kathy Gregory, I think. No? Anyway. And we couldn't hear Miss Kathy But mostly we were talking about what would limit us in terms of our activity, and that would be the weather. If it's too hot or too cold, we can't go out just because it's actually district mandated. If it's below, I think it's 27 or something, we can't go out. If it's above 87, we can't go out. Then Mr. Moody said he doesn't have enough space, and neither do we for all the kids that we have if we have to stay inside. So that was another thing. And then materials like balls and frisbees and hula hoops and jump ropes and stuff. There aren't a lot of that. We cull a lot of broken stuff, a lot of flat balls and dinged up frisbees and ropes that are tangled beyond the Gorgon's knot, and just so we have nice things for the kids. Otherwise, there's not a lot of excitement about having those things if they're all junky.
Right.
And another one was because Mr. Moody has 5th to 8th graders, and I was talking about I like to bring in, because we both do this, we bring in materials and stuff for the kids. And he was wondering if we were going to be able to do that still next year.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know about. And, but, you know, before this end of the school year, we would bring in bubble mix stuff and make big pans of bubbles and do the, you know, the gigantic string stuff and make bubbles or bring bubble wands or make bubble wands out of stuff. And the kids would love it. And then Mr. Moody told me he does 5th and 8th graders, 5th to 8th graders. And he said, I don't think they would go for that. So it's also the audience that you're working with. But my little guys love bubbles.
Yeah, it does. It makes a difference what age group you're with. So
exactly. So that was another thing. Yeah. And the Moody also said his older kids are like tied to their phones. You know, it's hard to separate them from their phones and tell them we're going to play basketball for 1 hour, then you can have your phone, or we're going to do homework and then you can have. So those were the limitations that were discussed. Right. And sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you, Denise. So so Stephanie has been she's been trying to keep track. She's been typing. We're using a Google slide presentation. So Stephanie, if you want to share that slide, so just so we can kind of see, and we're going to go back to the breakout rooms, and this will be the last breakout room for today. But going back to the breakout rooms, and I want you to talk about how do you overcome those barriers, or how have you overcome those barriers? So we've kind of listed out the weather, spacing, liabilities, you know, certain things you can't do, school functions that take over your space, geographical location, whether that's for the physical activity that you can't go outside because of where you're located, or you don't have access to fresh foods, maybe no fresh fruit, or you know it's expensive in certain places. Availability of fresh produce is on there. Prep time is limiting sometimes. So we're going to go back to the breakout rooms, and we'll give you 6 or 7 minutes again. And I want you to talk about how have you or how do you overcome those limitations for implementing physical activity and healthy eating.
Did anybody come up with some good ideas about how we kind of go past these barriers? Was there anything that kind of stood out to anybody when we talked about some of these barriers? I know that I added one in. I'll screen share with you guys just so that you can see it one more time. If you have something that you're like, I just need to tell you about this one, please tell me. Don't mind, you can just unmute yourself. But these are kind of our barriers. that we talked about. So these are things that we said were kind of difficult. I'll share some of the stuff that I do in my program and how we have worked through some of these barriers, because I understand that it can be kind of discouraging. We are in a very small district. So if there's a basketball game, yeah, right. We definitely don't get any of the space. So mine, right? So staff members, I actually had this happen. We started this program with the 4-H, and it's called the Active Kids Program. And it's one of the ways we talked about bridging with community partners. And essentially, we're teaching our students through 13 weeks, different characteristics that will help them in life. And then they run, walk, basically active for 20 minutes. And I teach this 6th through 11th grade. So I actually do it with middle and high school. And I went in and I had a staff member who was teaching this lifetime game class. They would play basketball, they would play dodgeball. And I said, hey, I'd really like for you to teach this. And he said, okay. And I said, well, you're going to have to participate, right? And he said, well, I'm not going to change clothes and from my school day clothes to these clothes so that I could walk with these students. And I thought to myself, how can we promote physical activity and living this positive lifestyle if we're not even willing to do this ourselves? Right? So I said, we'll call him Josh. Like, Josh, you're teaching a physical activity game. Like, this is your class that you chose to take on. I understand that you don't want to change, but I need you to set the example. And so we worked on it, and I would bring my clothes in, right? So I would change into my clothes and I would go with him and I would model it. And I said, how do we promote this with these kids if we can't be physically active ourselves? I'm not even saying we have to run, but I'm talking about walking with the student, because this whole thing we're talking about is making connections. So when I would go, I would walk with the students and I would pick a kid and I'd be like, hey, Jared, come walk with me. I'm going to walk with you for a couple minutes. We would walk, we would talk, and then he would start telling me about stuff at school and then something else. And I'd be like, hey, we would walk for a couple minutes. Thank you for walking with me. You don't have to walk with me anymore. He would run on. I would find somebody else. But I was able to keep this connection with these students. So then as we continue this class, they started calling it story time. They started saying, Miss Stephanie, are you going to walk with us? They started saying, I want to beat you in my laps. Don't worry, I don't like to run, so you can beat me in as many laps as you want, because I'm probably only going to do 2. I would do like 5. But it was a way to keep them engaged, right? And I said, we have to be able to show and set that example. I don't want to just tell them to be physically active if I'm not going to do this either. I'm going back and reading what you guys are saying too. So Dragon Tales, I have never even heard of Dragon Tales, David. So please unmute and let me know what this is. Let's see, book fair. Yeah, book fair is crazy. We lose our space with book fair too. But I think, these are really good ideas and really important things that we have to remember. We have a lot of picky eaters at our school, but one of the things we noticed in our district is that when we gave them the option for fresh fruit, when we were able to kind of partner with our local grocery stores, when we were able to partner with our local businesses, and even our local farmers, because we're in a kind of an agriculture area, and they would donate, our students would be more willing to try it. And we always tell our kids, we just want you to take a no thank you bite, right? Like, will you just take a no thank you bite? I personally don't like mushrooms. They're just not my thing. But the kids made something that had mushrooms in it. And even though I don't care for mushrooms, I always tell them, like, hey, I'm going to take a bite. And if I don't like it, it's going to be my no thank you bite. But I appreciate the fact that you guys are doing something and making some kind of food for me. So I think that that's a pretty important thing too. So our next one talks about our, here we go. So out of school time, and so our title was inclusion. Hey, but Brad and I really,
sorry, real quick, just because this was in the chat box, and you should put it over there. I think this is it's really helpful, I think. So she had several things in there that were really good, but one of the things that she mentioned was building relationships with the day school so we can share equipment.
Yes.
So So you don't have to have all your own equipment all the time. If you can build a relationship with a teacher, and that teacher has a basket of basketballs and footballs and kickballs and whatever, you build a relationship and say, hey, Miss Jones, can we take your kickball on Tuesdays so we can go play kickball in the gym, or we can play outside or whatever. So lots of good things. Y'all keep your eye on that chat box, because there are lots of things happening over there as well. But I just wanted to point that out. Just, again, it's a relationship. It's connection with the regular school day. Build those relationships, and you're benefiting them by getting their kids active, keeping them healthy. And it's a benefit to you because you get to use their equipment. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Steph.
No, that's great. I actually was reading while you were talking about it. And I think that that's awesome. Like, so we have used our hallways as well. And we've done, we make obstacle courses down the hallway. Or we've taken, pods, and we've done different stations so the kids can travel down the stations in the hallways, because we're not always afforded the opportunity to go outside either. The real fill is below 32, or if it's above like 95, they don't allow us to go outside. So that's definitely a good use of your hallway space. So Brad and I talked a little bit about this.
Hey, Stephanie, real quick.
Yeah.
I was going to add, Bridget Gibson had raised her hand. She had something, and I wanted to make sure we recognize it really, really quickly. So she might be able to unmute and say something. She said she had something really quick.
That's good. Real quick. It was just something that you had said, about how you said you hated mushrooms and everything. So, so I worked at a daycare, and I've been teaching infants all the way up to 5 years old. But anyway, make a long story short, so we had our own personal cook that would come in, and like I said, everything had to be healthy. There was no pork, there was no peanuts, stuff like that. And I hate peas. I hate peas to save my life. I don't like, but the thing is, the cook, she always did this every time. Every time there was a dish that had peas in it for our kids, she would always bring me 2 on a spoon in front of the kids and say, "Oh, Miss Bridget likes peas," and they would be in my face trying to see if I would eat these peas. So that was the only way to get them to eat something healthy like you do a baby. That's why I was saying kids are sponges. And so, yeah, I had to eat these peas in front of them, and that was no fun, but I did it. But that made them to want to do healthy stuff. Or when we go out and they would want to play tag, well, Miss Bridget was out there running with them and playing tag. So they enjoyed that. So I think, like I said, us doing it, the kids pay attention to it as well. And like I said, they imitate everything that we say and do, whether it's good or bad. So we as educators have to be mindful of that.
That was good. Bridget, you're so right though. I mean, how do we expect our students to do things that we're not even willing to try? And it doesn't say that you have to be the best at it. Nobody's saying go out and run 5 miles and expect your students to, but we need you to at least try to set that example. And that's I think I talk about that with my staff the most, and even talking about that just in the school in general. We can't expect our students to be respectful, and we can't expect our students not to have this on them all the time when we're attached all the time. We tell our kids, like, you need to put this away, but then what's our behavior modeling? Same thing, right? This is all about connection. So I think that's a great point. Yes, you had to try the peas, but think about it. Those kids were able to try that after watching you kind of probably cringe through your 2 peas and make a smile like, this is so good. But you're right though. Okay, so out of school time and inclusion. Brad and I changed this, right? Involvement. Because inclusion, there's a lot of different meanings to inclusion. It kind of gets very interesting because there's so many different parts, right? We could talk about like day school and after school inclusion. We could talk about, kiddos with maybe some physical or mental learning, either disabilities or delays. We could talk about anything. So Brad and I really like the term involvement, because involvement means everything. Family involvement, community involvement, day school involvement, out of school time involvement. We're talking about involvement in our communities. We're talking about involvement with our administrators, with our teachers, partnerships. And so this was a big one for us, is what is out of school time? If you're not an after school professional, what is out of school time? Because I had somebody say this the other day when I was getting ready to hand out we do bag handouts on Fridays. So we drive to every kid in the district and we hand them an activity to do over the weekend. Has all their materials in it. And somebody made the comment the other day, like, oh, I can't wait for school to start so that my kids can go to Hornet Club. And I was like, oh, I'm really excited to see them back. We have some really great ideas for them coming up. And they're like, yeah, it's like a babysitting service. And I was like, well, because they don't understand, right? So when we talk about out of school time, we're like, okay, I feel like in my side, I need to do a better job explaining more of what our 21st century grant is to our parents again, right? Because knowledge is power and they just need to know. But out of school time can be before school, after school, weekends, summer breaks, spring breaks, winter breaks, holidays, any of our time that we're not in school. And so I think that that's an important one too, is when we talk about out of school time, we're not necessarily just talking about these large summer breaks, but we're talking about all of these other added pieces as well. And we said, you know, if you do as a program offer, go over there. No. If you are at a program, how do you currently implement, right? If you're back in your program with our COVID guidelines and with things like this, how are you currently implementing our healthy eating and our physical activity? Because that's important too, you know, or what did your program do during COVID to at least help promote it? We know we can't be in school with our kids. There were a lot of programs that posted stuff on their Facebook pages because that seemed to be such a great platform for everybody. So I know on a couple of the directors' calls, there were a couple people that shared their page and they would promote all kinds. I know Warrensburg Adventure Club would always promote things on their Facebook page on ways to get physically active. We did, where they had like the days, it was like now I'm gonna like mind blank, but it was the Department of Conservation as it was leading up to Earth Day. And it was all these different ways to get outside. And so one of the days was take things from nature and make it into a mosaic. So you had to go on a hunt for all these things in nature. Then you had to craft something into it. And so my kids picked sticks up from down the road and brought them back and made a house. Or, you know, you go and you find things like this. So all of this, because we're in and out of school time, finding ways for us to become outside. And we're not saying when you have to be physically active that you have to run or you have to like Brad said, do these crazy CrossFit workouts or do whatever. But even if the kids go outside and play basketball with one another, even if the kids go outside and get on their bikes and go talk to the neighbors or ride their bikes down the road or go and clean up the community, or you can go online and print out outdoor scavenger hunts, you know, and where the kids can take that and then they go outside and they look for scavenger hunts. Our craft for this week is we bought these little nets and we're going to print out all the facts about fireflies. And we have a craft for them. And then we're going to give all the families a net and we're going to have the kids go collect fireflies one night and post about it online. Super basic, simple stuff, right? But it gets them outside. They're doing something. This way they can have fun while being outside and staying engaged. Let's see, what's next slide? So we had two resources. One of them was posted last week and it was our CDC and it talks about school nutrition and environment. I'm going to escape so you guys can see it really quick because this will make it a little bit easier. I'm going to open. So I don't think that one's it. Hang on, give me 1 second. Pull the screen down. So this is from the CDC and it talks about school nutrition. So we can share this link. But if you scroll down, it talks a lot about school meals, smart snacks, access for water for students, staff role modeling, which I really think is a big important thing for us, right? Being that positive role model for them. Healthy eating, learning opportunities. It even has like our access to healthy foods and beverages at school. So you could always print something if you wanted to take it to your administrators, or if you're in a center and you want to kind of work with the district, like, hey, these are some ideas that I found, some resources. Can we maybe work together and see if you can get some of these ideas? A lot of framework access, but it talks, you know, even in here, it just says like we can practice the eating to reinforce our behaviors. And then it goes on to give you more resources, right? Alliance for Healthier Generation. And it just continues to show and promote some of these healthy eating standards. And then the other one, this is called Power Up Fitness. So Brad actually had talked with the person who owns this This is a resource where they do some free webinars, and it's all about physical fitness within schools. And if you are a 21st Century Grant recipient, you can use this to pay for some of their programs. Their programs have all day school curriculum. They're written out. These are actually really, really cool. I was looking at them with Brad a little bit earlier. You can go into your bundles. So they do different ages and different kids. So it's a plethora. And they're broken down into bundles. So you can, if you wanted to look at getting some kind of online courses, if you wanted to get some of these materials, but it has all the lessons broken down for you. So everything inside of here gives you what you need, and it gives you all the activities and all the ideas of different things that you can do. And I think that that's a pretty neat thing for us to be able to take, especially because it's hard for us sometimes to realize, like, we go on this, like, I almost get like on a brain fart where I like lose track of ideas and I get stuck because I've thought about the same thing. Hey, I want to play scatterball with Stephanie. I want to play scatterball with Stephanie. I want to play scatterball. Okay, I'm tired of scatterball, but what else can I find that's going to be a positive thing for us to do instead? So this Power Up Fitness, Brad, I don't know if you don't mind to share that in the chat box. But I think Power Up Fitness is a great resource for us to be able to look into because that's an important one. It will kind of give us some ideas. So that way, if we ever get stuck, right, we have that ability. And then the last thing that we said today, we want to talk about bringing everything together. So day school and after school, right? When we work as a team, right? Teamwork equals dream work. That's a big one. And communication is key. And I'm a big believer that when you build those positive relationships with each other, you guys can work together to make some really good headway when it comes to healthy eating, physical activity. The other one for me is really important, and I keep reminding people, when we go back to school in August, if we're afforded the opportunity to go back in August, our kids have been out of school for 6 months. So we need to give them that grace period of understanding that they've not been in that kind of an environment for 6 months. So maybe that means that in the first, and I know being part of the 21st Century or being a part of some of our SAT grants, we have these guidelines and we have these data that we're supposed to reach, and we have all of these points that we're supposed to hit. But at the same time, I think our kiddos' well-being, physical, mental, right? We might need to give them a little bit more grace. So maybe it means we offer a couple more physical activity classes in the out-of-school time program just to get them up and moving. Our school district used a program called the Walking Classroom, and they got their own set headsets, and it's a podcast. And so it's a little tiny MP3 player. And in the tiny MP3 player, it's got a bunch of different activity or topics. So one of the topics I remember was hurricanes. So the kids set it to the number, and then they put their headphones in and they walk. And it's 15 minutes, and it talks about hurricanes and explains them. Well, then we came inside, and then we got to look up hurricanes, and we got to do models of them. But they were able to get up and be physically active, move their body. And that way we had lower behaviors. We weren't struggling as much when it comes with our students in sitting after a long time, because a lot of our kiddos are just going to be not used to being in that seat all day long. So the Walking Classroom is a really good resource. There's another one, and I cannot remember it for the life of me, but it's like a board game. Brad, I don't know if you remember what it is, but it almost looks like a Monopoly board game, and it's got dice. I saw it at NAA. I'll have to find it because I have it. But that one talks all about, like moving your body. That was a really cool one too. I just don't remember it off the top of my head. I can't remember now. But that's all I got.
So real quick, Power Up is a curriculum. There is a cost involved with that, just so you know going into it. But it is really, I think I've heard Mark say this a lot, as far as things for program directors, plug and play. So it's all laid out for you. It's ready to go. It's lined up. So just wanted to let you know, though, that there is a cost for Power Up. And I think Walking Classroom is something that you would pay for as well, that curriculum.
Yes.
For that. So that's what that is. Also, Erica, if you're still on here, she mentioned in the chat box that they had connected with Missouri Parks and Rec for some activity videos.
Yes, they are amazing. It's free. When I worked for a school district, they had a family night that they had them come into camping. And so they said, hey, I think one of the teachers was like, hey, I think this would be a really good resource for you. So I connected with them. And the lady that we use out here in Kansas City, she did some short videos for us and sent it to us. And then then she has some activities that correlate with that video. And then she as well sent us a list of like 20 to 25 various like scavenger hunts that kids can do outside. So they are a really good partnership. A lot of people that I found out are doing now are just doing a lot of stuff virtual, but you know, they're able to get to a lot of people. Mad Science is a really good company out here in Kansas City that they're doing virtual stuff. So that might be something as well as Science City. They usually have a program in the summer geared towards before and after school programs, because they do know that there are, you know, schools and communities offering services during the summer. And they come out to you, and again, it's totally free. And this year they are doing theirs, you know, virtual for the summer too. So yeah, a lot of the people we've used, they're just going virtual, but we're able to, you know, utilize them still.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Erica. Erica is the queen of finding those resources, the free ones especially. She seems to
I like free.
Yes. So thanks, Erica, for sharing that. So that's wrapping up our Connect and Learn today. So when you go back, if you're back already, baby steps, right? Small steps on implementing physical activity in your program. Maybe it's just bringing in some peas once a month that the kids got to eat peas and Miss Bridget has to eat 2. Whatever it might be. So we're not talking about revamping your whole program. Don't change everything that you do. Small steps. And Denise mentioned it earlier in the chat box. Be intentional. Be intentional about getting the kids moving, getting the staff moving so that they model for the kids. So it is, check out those HEPA standards. The link, I think, was in the chat box. Stephanie posted it up there earlier. We'll send it out. Oh, I know the last thing I was going to say. Stephanie, we had talked about creating a Google Doc, correct? Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is Brad's going to shoot me over in the next day or two all the participants from week 1 to week 3 in an email. And I'm going to craft, basically it's going to be a Google Doc, and it'll be the healthy eating ideas and the physical activity ideas. And we want to create just a living document. So I just want everybody to add ideas. So this way, when we do run into this whole, I'm stuck and I don't know what to do, I've done the same 5 programs for 5 years now, we can go back to this document and we can be like, oh yeah, hey, so in Warrensburg, they did this, I want to try it out. Or, oh, hey, at the Boys and Girls Club, they did this, I want to try it out. We're able to kind of pull resources from everybody. So I encourage you, once it's crafted and sent out, I encourage you to share it with your staff members. This way they can add to it. I encourage you guys just to share with everybody, because we want to make this big compiling resource. The plan is to also print it out. This way, if we're ever at a conference and we want to share these ideas with each other, we can print it out and say, hey, here's a list of 100 ideas of different things that people are doing. You know, some of them cost you some money and some of them are totally free. Some of these are tried and true and plug and plays, and some of them you may have to prep a little bit. But I'll get that made by the end of the week and then get that shared out so everybody has it.
All right. Great. Thanks, Stephanie. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for being with us. I mean, some of y'all have been with us, I think, every time since March 25th. So thank you for joining us and being part of it. We will continue. I was just thinking, I'm going to miss seeing faces and names and be like, oh yeah, I wonder what they're doing these days. Keep in touch with us. If you need anything, you can email any one of us, the MASN staff. however we can help and support you. So thanks for hanging out with us over the last few months. I hope your programs are fantastic. Hopefully we'll all get back to school and normal, whatever normal is, sooner rather than later.